Today is June 30th, 2022. My name is Sebastiano Cocco. I'm with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and we are at the Chappie James, let me make sure I get it straight, Chappie James Museum of Pensacola.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
And today I have the pleasure to be with
Carlton Charles.
All right, Mr. Charles, would you like to introduce yourself by beginning to say when and where you were born?
Born 1945 here in Pensacola.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you born in a specific neighborhood that you have affiliation with?
I was born on the west side of Pensacola.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, there's an apartment building on the corner of Gonzales and the Villas. And I was actually born in that apartment building. I wasn't born in the hospital. Yeah.
That's quite the story. This is pretty little delicate. You don't have to answer if you don't know. But do you happen to know if there was a midwife present or if there was a...
There was a Dr. E.S. Cobb. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you are familiar with the E.S. Cobb Community Center.
I don't
That's
believe
named
so.
after Dr. Cobb.
Okay. So known doctor in town.
Yes.
That's really cool. And so did you grow up in that same neighborhood?
I grew up probably 8 to 10 blocks from there. I grew up on Gaston Street between the Villa and Coral.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the community like when you were growing up over there? What was the...
It was much different than today.
Yeah.
I came up in a time when, everybody in the neighborhood, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Anybody in the neighborhood that saw you doing something wrong could punish you. And then they would tell your parents, and then you get punished again. But that's the type of situation it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice neighborhood. But then, I think in the 70s, drugs came along, and so it's changed some. But it's in the process of revitalizing because downtown Pensacola, you familiar with Belmont, the Villa area?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, that's expanding, and that's going to encompass like the area that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and were there any neighborhood schools where you grew up, or did you have to go elsewhere?
Matter of fact, the school that Dr. Williams was just talking with you about, when I was there, I went my first 3 years it was then L.A. Curtsey. So I went my first 3 years there, and then I went from the fourth on private school, St. Joseph's Catholic School.
Mm-hmm. Would you mind spelling out the first name of the school? It said L.A.
Just initials L, initial A, Curtsey, Kirksey.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow. Okay, so quite interesting. And so, what was school like? I mean, I've heard it that just like you said about the neighborhood, people would know. Same thing at school where you couldn't get away from your teacher. So was it that kind of situation?
Yeah, it was that type of situation too. Yeah. And after I went down to the Catholic school, you probably heard stories about nuns. So a lot of them are true. A lot of them are true. They were very, very strict. Very strict. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any favorite subjects while in school?
Believe it or not, Latin.
Latin.
Yeah, I was an altar boy, so back then the mass was in Latin. So.
Wow. So you had to learn it.
Yeah.
That's quite cool. And what about, were the nuns also your teachers, or was it like a separation?
Yeah. Basically, back then, the majority of the people down there were, the teachers were nuns. Nowadays, it's unusual for, we've got, say, for instance, Sacred Heart over here on 12th Avenue. You may have 2 nuns, and everybody else is a lay person. So they don't, it just kind of phased out.
But back then it was basically only nuns.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it must It's an interesting system, I guess.
Yeah. I was taught by nuns and priests.
Mm-hmm. And was there, I guess going through school, I heard a big difference used to be that, I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of classical education sort of subjects, but was it also available to do things like that are more hands-on, so to speak? Was that available at the time?
Not a whole lot. Not in the schools that I attended. You're talking about like vocational type?
Yeah, like bricklayer, like mason thing.
No. Not in the high school that I attended. They had, I think at that time, they had Pensacola High School, Pensacola Technical High School. It was on the corner of Palafox and Gadsden, I think. And, that was the situation, but that was doing segregation.
Right.
So, that wasn't available to us.
That was a white school.
Yeah.
So I guess going through high school, was there like an expectation then to go to college or to have like further degrees?
Yeah.
Well, y'all talked about that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't do that. I started college, and when I dropped out, as soon as I dropped out, I got married. So I was married at 19.
Wow.
Yeah. Still married. 57 years. I've been suffering a long time.
But that's quite interesting. So where like I really it would be cool to hear. So were there any schools that like came to y'all, like professors from the school, like anybody to advertise like, hey, we're from such and such, we're from FAMU, we're from Bethune-Cookman, or how did you hear about other schools?
I was familiar with them because I had like an older cousin that went down to FAMU, so that's how I used to spend time down there with him. Going homecoming, whatever. Yeah.
So it was like already part of the community, sort of, to think about these institutions.
Yeah.
That's quite cool.
Yeah. And actually, I was slated to go to Tennessee State, but like I said, I got married. Started a family.
And so did you, I guess, pick up a trade, or how did you go about life at that point?
I spent majority of my time I spent in sales, and in for instance, I ran the Jacksonville territory for Uniroyal for several years, and my wife and I moved back here to Pensacola in '75, and we both went to work for what is now International Paper.
Okay.
When we went to work for them, it was St. Regis. So I worked for St. Regis for a while. St. Regis sold to Champion International, but I wound up retiring from International.
Okay.
Yeah. My wife and I both retired from the paper company here.
And what was it like coming back in '75, and what was that work like? Was it just was it like I guess, what kind of a job is it, if you like to speak?
What kind of what now?
What kind of a job is it? What were kind of like tasks and things that you do?
I started out with St. Regis. I was doing surveying. I started doing surveying for St. Regis. I went out there in 1975. In 1987, they phased out the survey crew. So then I transferred over into the mill, and I had worked 12 years in maps and surveys. I did 18 years in the mill as a lab technician, and retired after 30 years.
Wow, it's quite a resume. And were there other folks in the same community you grew up in that you ended up meeting on the same jobs, or did your paths like?
Yeah. Matter of fact, my wife, she started out there in personnel, and so she got her brother's jobs and brother-in-laws and so forth, and she eventually, when they opened up the apprenticeship program, when affirmative action came in, they had to, up to that point, most of the jobs that blacks had were the menial jobs. when affirmative action came in, these people had to be trained. They had to assimilate into other jobs. So my wife, being in personnel, got the opportunity to transfer out into the mill, into the apprenticeship program. She was one of the first two women to join that apprenticeship program. She became a instrument technologist. So she retired from that.
Wow. And so, do you remember like a range somehow when affirmative action kicked in, like around which years by any chance? Yeah, I won't.
No, I can't remember what I had.
It's okay. We'll look it up. We'll look it up afterwards. All right. And so you were okay. So you came here after a bit, and then you just worked for quite some time in, I guess, local industry. So I guess that would then like bring me to think like, how did you always know Mr. Chappie James, or how did that even begin to be?
You know, as a young kid, I knew of him. I even, you know, met him on occasion. But I'm the project engineer for the East Side Neighborhood Improvement Association. So I think in somewhere around 2012, we took on the project of trying to help get this established. And I think the initial idea came from an organization called Movement for Change. But for some reason, they couldn't get it worked out. When we took it over, I guess it was probably the timing. You know, I was able to convince the city that it was time for something like this. It was it was long overdue. And you know, luckily I was able to convince some people with the city that we could get this done, and we did it. It took a few years, but we got it done.
Wow. Yeah. So you started in 2012, I guess, officially. But
yeah. I think that's when you met Ross. I think that's when Ross became involved with it, and that's when we kind of started getting it off the ground. I can remember the day that, but let me say this: none of this would have been possible if it had not been for a young lady named oh my God, what is her name? Let me think. Give me a second.
It's all good.
Oh man, I just talked with her not too long ago, but let me come back to.
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
Because I do want to tell you that. I do want to tell you.
For sure, get the name right for the record. Okay, and so I guess your connection was that you work for already like a neighborhood association. So you're kind of already looking into things where it's like, okay, let's think by neighborhoods, preserving history, retaining.
Yeah, and we did some signs at various points of interest around Pensacola. We did that in hopes of becoming connected with the Florida State Black History Trail. Pensacola, I wanted to do a City of Pensacola Black History Trail. So we've got some signs around various points in the city, in the East Side community, that we worked on and had done.
Wow. Yeah. And
okay. The young lady, I just happened to remember.
All right.
The young lady, Zoe, Zoya Webster Phillips. When we started this project, we had a starting point because the plaza, the Chappie James Memorial Plaza, was already there. And Ms. Phillips was the one that was instrumental in getting that done. She was the one that convinced the James family to donate the land to the city for that. So, like I say, when we had a starting point there, the old house was here, and I can remember the day that Ellis Jones, Diane Robinson, and I stood right out there behind the old house, wondering how to get started. And
here we are. Yeah, a decade later.
Yeah.
Or less even.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
And just for the record, so you said the East Side. So is this like where we're at right now? Is it considered the East Side neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay, East Side neighborhood. Wow. And so you get started on this project. There's a few people, I guess, but a lot of work to do. So then, what were the steps of the whole house then? Did it have to get taken down, or?
Yeah. The house was really in bad shape. So, and in order to get accreditation as a historical site, you have to have a certain percentage of the old house still there. So a lot of it had to be replaced. But for instance, the joists under the house, a lot of those were rotted and decayed and so forth. So what we did was we had new lumber attached to some of the older stuff. And we had to, if you notice in the classroom in the museum there, you see the old wall there. So we retained that. That helped as far as the percentage of, but one of the things that I guess most proud of is the Flight Academy. We decided if we do this museum, why not incorporate the Flight Academy with the museum? And a few of us really didn't want to do that, but the majority of us felt that it was a no-brainer. And so we went ahead and we did that. And it's turned out well. It's turned out well. And I think I mentioned, and you heard me mention before, that we're in the process of, within the next month or so, we'll be breaking ground out here over this holding pond, putting in an 1,800 square foot building. And the Flight Academy will move from its present location out there. And the space that they now occupy will revert back to the museum. So it's taken a while, but we're doing something.
Yeah, definitely doing something really important.
Yeah.
And so I guess the Flight Academy, I mean, I imagine that obviously continues on the legacy of Mr. Chappie James.
Yes.
And I mean, I was reading a little bit on the walls, and it's, I had mostly read about the Vietnam, air work, but not as much in the fact even did Korea.
Yeah.
And I think even World War II? Maybe
some of World War II, late World War II, yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously someone who spent a lot of time up in the sky, and so.
And what always amazed me was he was such a big guy, and it's hard to envision him in some of those planes. Man, he must have been stuffed in them.
Wow. And so how did I mean, obviously it makes sense that you'd have a Flight Academy in the place of, an Air Force General, but how did that really come in? Like, what's like maybe the steps, do you have to contact people, get it?
Well, actually, the Flight Academy was started by a gentleman named Cliff, and they have been doing this for 20 plus years. But what they would do, they would come to Pensacola for 1 week. They were arranged to the space at Pensacola Airport. And from Monday through Friday, they would do classroom stuff, aerodynamics, different things with the kids and so forth. Then on Saturday, they would take them out to Ferguson Field and actually fly them around and actually let them, get some hands on.
Wow.
Yeah. But like I say, when we did the museum, the Flight Academy had really never had owned its own space.
Mm-hmm.
So we felt like it was an opportunity to bring it here, let them have their own space, and eventually this will be a daily thing. So instead of doing it once a year, they can do it daily. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite the progression too, just to see it happen so fast, even the facilities.
Like I say, to me, it just seemed to have taken so long, but it's well worth. It was well worth the effort. Well worth the effort.
Yeah. Do you think like maybe a lot of the kids that maybe they'd rather come here to learn some of this stuff instead of going all the way out in the Pensacola airport, you said? Do you think maybe this is even like a better location for some kids in the neighborhood?
Yeah. And the thing is, they don't have that opportunity out there anymore since we moved the Flight Academy here. So this is it. This is it. I think now, if you've been down on the base, they have a Naval Museum and Flight Academy down there. It's really the real thing with the large simulators and so forth. But we use the monitors and that type of thing.
Is that one of those places you need to have a military ID to go in? Because some of those are like, well, I can show you this place, but you got to come in with me.
Yeah, but I think right now it's restricted to people with DOD passes.
Oh.
Yeah, for security reasons.
Oh, so now you really have to be.
Yeah. But I think there was something in the paper last week where they're considering allowing the general public in there again. So probably within the next few weeks, general public will be able to go in there.
Oh, okay. And I guess some of Chappie James,
the students,
the history and whatnot, like it also is over there.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, because they during that week of classroom stuff, they take them down there to the naval base and let them see that museum, let them use that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so obviously, such a great impact in the neighborhood, people around him. But how do you think his impact is shown in like maybe wider Pensacola? Like, why do you think he's like so accepted? Or why did it take some time to get some things even named in his name? I guess there's a bridge.
Well, yeah, there's going to be a plaza down there at the end of the bridge. Well, the thing is, Pensacola, I don't think you have that many four-star generals from Pensacola, whether black or white. And for a black man to achieve something like that in the time that he did during those segregated times in the military and so forth, that's quite an accomplishment. And so there's a lot of pride as far as Chappie James is concerned in Pensacola and in the East Side community. So there's a governmental building named after him down on downtown Pensacola on Government. You mentioned the statue that's going to be at the end of the bridge out there, and that's going to be a plus for the museum. You're going to have people come across that bridge, see this statue of this black guy out there with this jet, and you're going to wonder, who is that? What's that all about? You stop, you take a look at it, and then you start to hear about the museum. So it's going to tie into the museum. It's going to help us here. So it's going to be quite a package.
Yeah, you've spoken of a Pensacola Trail of Black history. Do you think maybe, sort of linking these spots together and like on a map, do you think that would help people really
Yeah, yeah. That is that's one of the things that we hope to do as far as we've got some points established, and we've got signs in certain areas, but we're going to probably do several more, and we want to link up with the Florida State Black History Trail. We hope to do that, and the west side of Pensacola is doing the same thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a move to really show what's been here. And wow. And so I guess getting back to the Flight Academy, which really seems to be, a really, really big, especially looking towards the future, kids involved and whatnot. How do you think that new space is gonna help, besides it being a bigger space? But do you have...
Well, that's the main thing, is the fact that it's a large area, because, like I say, it didn't take the academy very long to outgrow its space. So it was really a necessary step, and that's going to be the biggest gain as far as the Flight Academy is concerned. It's going to allow us to do probably like back during the pandemic. I think they got down as few as 10 or 12 kids. Because you had the 6 foot spacing and this type of thing. And like I say, the space itself was so small. But in doing this, it'll give us the capacity to do about 40 kids. And normally, they were right around the 30, 32 kids range. So we should be able to do about 40, at least 40 kids, or maybe a few more. Yeah.
Are there any other features there that you're looking forward to? Anything else that? Because obviously that's the main thing, to have the space for people to learn. But
yeah.
Will it also have like any, like I don't know, some memorabilia perhaps from?
Yeah, that's initially when this was done, there was to be a gift shop. Okay, that did not work out. We've got, right now we've got a couple of items, and the gift shop area was going to be right in there, and it could still be worked out, actually, because I did a drawing for it. I laid it out, and we could work it right in there. But in the future, we're looking to do some other things, and we hope to acquire the house next door there on the corner. That'll allow us to spread out a little bit and maybe do a gift shop over there, some additional museum space. But it was the intent to have, and you need to have something like that. If somebody visits a facility like this, they need to have a cap, a shirt or something, So, and it could help with revenue. It could help with revenue, yeah.
Is there any, aside from the Flight Academy, or, that level of education for kids, how do you think kids can learn from his legacy? Like, even if you're not going to be a pilot, you can obviously learn something from him. So how do you think, like, maybe his legacy can be, like, carried out to kids?
Well, kids at the Flight Academy, it involves discipline and teamwork and so forth, so those are assets of it. And so kids can learn that from that.
Yeah.
And it's also a confidence builder. It would help kids with self-esteem. What I really want to see happen is I want to see kids, more underprivileged kids, get the opportunity to do this. I don't know if you're familiar with Pensacola Village.
Nope.
But Pensacola Village is low-income housing development.
Mm-hmm.
It's up on Davis and Fairfield. And adjacent to Pensacola Village, we have the Woodland Community Center. So what I would like to see, what I've asked them to do, is to try to set up an outreach program
Mm-hmm.
where they could go up to that Woodlands Community Center and have kids from Pensacola Village come over. Like I say, these are underprivileged kids that have no idea this type of thing exists, don't have access to anything like this.
Right.
So, and there's no real cost for it. So, you know.
Yeah, it's always very important, I think, because they don't even know what to look for.
Right,
If they don't even know what it is.
You know, and a lot of kids don't realize, hey, I could be a pilot, and so, you know, when we would have the kids down here sometime, I would ask the guys, you know, wear your uniforms, put your uniform on. You know, let the kids see you in your uniform.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're down here and you're dressed like that, you know, they don't know you. They may not know you're a pilot. You know, unless you just really sit down and talk with them. But let them see you in your uniform.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, very important for them to just see you face to face, so that they probably wonder before they even look at you. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, really important. And would you say that already as a flight academy, you are able to reach out to some of these kids from underprivileged backgrounds?
I'm sure
To some level.
that they can. Yeah, they can, but they haven't done it to the extent that I would like to see it done. You know, we've had academies where we've had kids fly in from Miami, come in from different cities and stuff like that. But and then, you know, you have some, what's happening with the lights? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You have some, you know, more local kids. I like to see more local kids doing this, yeah.
Yeah, definitely very important to strive towards that, because especially if he's from here, then it's one more reason for people to, you know, if he made it through all those obstacles and all the restrictions, and I mean, you can call him that. It's a pretty low bar, you know.
Right.
And so one of the in the other space, one of the things that I saw twice was one said, "Thou shalt never quit," and the other one said a similar phrase. So is that part of the?
That was his mother's, one of his mother's commandments. Yeah, that was the 11th commandment, I guess.
Oh,
yeah. His mother came up with that. Yeah.
She was a school teacher in the area.
She was a school teacher. Yeah. Matter of fact, that the house is where a school was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she taught literally there. Yeah, the books.
And the picture that you saw on the wall in that room over there in the museum, that was one of the classes, and she did this for years. And she had, I think, what was amazing, the lady had 17 children, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, 17 of her own. And I think if I remember correctly, I think the school was like 5 cents a week or 5 cents a day or something like that. Yeah.
Just enough for the chalk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so this is it's been quite the visit, and you know, obviously you can show it to the interview. The person's gonna be listening to this, but really just gotta make sure all those pictures are gonna be uploaded so that folks really see like the drawings. It was all very interactive, and it just feels like people learning, kids especially, would feel at home knowing about this stuff, learning in a way that also suits them, not just know your history in bulk, and then it's like, well, how do I do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Really nice. So I guess this is pretty comprehensive, but we always like to give space towards the end of the interview, touch on anything you like to speak on, Usually, some people like to say
No,
things they're looking forward to.
well, I just like to thank you guys for the opportunity to do this. You know, maybe it'll help with the publicity and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, it's just we appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. Thank you, sir.
Okay. No problem.
All right.